After a quick one-game road trip to Detroit, the Hurricanes are back on Thursday to take on the Boston Bruins, the last game before the NHL trade deadline, and they are looking for their third straight win. Now, with the fact that the deadline's approaching, what kind of storm are they going to be weathering in their minds as they try to beat Boston to go for three straight?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Hour, so do some AHL content over at the Caller Times. Just started doing some baseball content over at Covering the Corner for SB Nation. Also, the co-host of the Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun Thursday edition of the show as we get to preview the Hurricanes against the Boston Bruins at home for their last game before the Friday's NHL Trade Deadline. Who are the players to watch and what are the keys of the game as the Hurricanes look to get their third straight win against a struggling Boston Bruins team who just gave up some of their guys in recent trades? And we continue our trade shortlist series as we get closer to Friday. And this one is going to feature Ryan McLeod of the Buffalo Sabres. But before we jump into all that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, like I said, the Carolina Hurricanes take on the Boston Bruins. This is a 7 p.m. start. Boston is 28-27-8, and the Hurricanes are 36-22-4. And this game will be on FanDuel Sports South and, of course, on 99.9 The Fan. Over the last 10 games, talk about a teams who are kind of somewhat even, but one struggling a lot more. And the team that's struggling a lot more, the Boston Bruins, they are 3-5-2 in their last 10, losing their last game to the Nashville Predators 6-3, which is put a lot of people into questioning what's going on with Boston. It looks like they're in the middle of a fire sale of getting Trent Frederick, getting rid of Max Jones and all of that. And that's, of course, that's back-to-back losses. Did beat Pittsburgh, but then before they had 5 straight losses. For the Carolina Hurricanes, 4-6-0 in their last 10. Of course, they won their last 2 games against Calgary in overtime. And, of course, being Detroit on Tuesday. Then, of course, on-off with the wins. And then they started off the month of February with losses to the Kings, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Minnesota Wild. Now, the last time these two teams faced off with each other was back, of course, in Carolina on a Halloween night where the Hurricanes absolutely stomped the Bruins 8-2, and that was just an absolute thrashing. This will be very interesting for the fact that this is the second of 3 meetings, and the next time these two teams meet up will be the first time in Boston for the year on April 5th. And it makes you wonder with how Boston's struggling, getting rid of some guys, how are they going to be feeling going into this game, especially after getting embarrassed by the Predators? Are we looking at a very angry Bruins team who still think they might try for a wild card spot, or are we looking at a team who's just kind of having to just kind of weather the storms, pun intended, of what's going on with them? But for Carolina, they are in a playoff push right now, mostly going for a seeding at this point more than anything else. Now, over the last 10 games, obviously, your last 5 games, who's leading the points, goals, and assists for both teams? Well, no surprise, David Pastrnak, 4 goals and 8 points for the Bruins, with Pavel Zacha with 5 assists. And then for the Carolina Hurricanes, Sebastian Aho, 3 goals. All 3 of them are the points. And then Shane Gostisbehere with 3 assists. Now, when you look at the goaltending situation, obviously Jeremy Swayman, 18-21-6 with 3 goals against, an .896 save percentage and 3 shutouts, while you have Jonas Korpisalo, 10-6-2 with a .281 and .895 save percentage and 3 shutouts as well. I could see them going either way with this. It really depends on who they feel like they really want to go. They want to throw in that. Obviously, probably it's going to be Jeremy Swayman for the fact that he's making the more money. out of both goalies, and then he's their number one guy. But you have Korpisalo, who does have a better, win-loss record, have a better goals against average. Save is about the same, and it has the same 3 shutouts. So it all really depends on who Boston feels more comfortable with going. But I could definitely see where it's probably a Jeremy Swayman, where if you're playing a really good team like Carolina, he's your guy that you're paying well over $8 million for. That's when you probably want to go with. Now, for the Hurricanes, obviously we saw Frederik Andersen on Tuesday against Detroit, where he got the win. He's 7-5-0 with a 2.18 goals against, a 9.11 save percentage, and a shutout. But if it was, I think how it's going to go down, it's probably going to be more so Peter Kochetkov, 22-11-3 with a 2.49 goals against, and 9.03 save percentage and a shutout. Because I think with the Hurricanes doing this back and forth like they did last season when Frederik Andersen came back, where they kind of alternated games, don't be surprised if we see a Peter Kochetkov against the Boston Bruins, because he's played a lot more games. His goals against is a little bit higher. His save percentage is down, but just so that way he doesn't get, he's not resting too much. Don't be surprised if it's Kochetkov. So we could be looking at a Kochetkov-Swayman more than anything else, but don't be shocked if we see Korpisalo against Kochetkov in this one. Now, looking at the tape, obviously, numbers speak differently to, from paper compared to ice, but you can definitely tell where the Hurricanes are at, of why they're 36-22-4, and why Boston's 28-27-8. Special teams, the Hurricanes 19% at 24th, but Boston is 30th at 15.2%. So Boston is struggling a lot more than Carolina. And look at the penalty kill, Hurricanes, second best penalty kill in the NHL, 83.7 after shutting Detroit down, who had the second best power play 2 nights ago, 3 for 3. While Boston's penalty kill is 22nd in the NHL with 76.4. Now, this is where it's going to be very interesting to see, how this game is going to go out, because the last time these two teams played, like I said, Carolina won 8-2. The Hurricanes are 11th in goals for per game at 3.18, while Boston in goals allowed per game give up 3.17, which is 23rd in the NHL. So if the Hurricanes pepper a lot of shots and make them high-quality shots, there is a good chance that we're going to put a lot of pucks in the net, hopefully against the Boston Bruins, and kind of shut this one out very quickly. Now, on the flip side of things, Boston 2.7 goals per game, 28th in the NHL, and this is after they only put up 3 goals on the Nashville Predators, who are very much one of the bottom feeders of the league. And one good thing for Carolina, how about 2.73 goals allowed per game, which puts them in 7th. So if you're Carolina, this gives you a good indication of, okay, you have a team who's not really scoring a lot of goals, or overall just kind of struggling across the board, and that's why they're a game above 500. This puts you in a good spot if you find a way to play your game. Basically give us the 60 minutes like we saw them do against Detroit. I don't see why this isn't a winnable game, where you come home, you're looking for your 24th home win, you're looking for your 3rd straight win going into the trade deadline, so you're kind of feeling even better about yourselves, having that momentum going into that. So if you're the Hurricanes, you're top 10 in goals allowed. Like, you're not giving up very many, and you got a team who right now is not giving themselves any favors by being 28th in the entire league in goals for. So, like I said, paper can say one thing, but it's putting it on the ice and do it. And we saw Carolina do it against Detroit. Detroit had the second best power play, absolutely shut them down on all 3 of their chances. They beat them 2-1. It could have been easily 4-1 if it wasn't for Alex Lyon. So Carolina is putting up a lot of goals. They're not giving up a lot. So it's just, if you play that structured game, you play that two-way, transitional game that the Hurricanes are known for, like they did against Detroit, you can easily do it against the Boston Bruins, who are, standings-wise, are worse than Detroit. So you're going to put yourself in a good spot of just repeating what you did against Detroit, but, make sure that you do it against Boston as well, because Boston still has guys. You still got Pastrnak, you still got Swayman, you still got, all these other guys that, can still do some damage. You got Morgan Geekie on that team, and you got a lot of other guys as well that you're going to have to keep an eye on for sure. Charlie Coyle's there, Pavel Zacha, and Marchand's not going to be in there, but they still have some guys who could probably do something. Mason Lohrei, Charlie McAvoy. It's just, McAvoy not going to be in this game, but overall you can see where Boston, while they are struggling, have a little bit of names that can work out for them. So that being said, who are the players to watch? What are the keys to the game for the Carolina Hurricanes? So stick around as we'll do that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get on than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, like I said, who are the players to watch on both sides of the ice? I kind of gave some names for the Boston Bruins, but obviously the first one, going to be David Pastrnak, 77 points in 63 games. 261 shots, 32 goals, 45 assists, averaging over 20 minutes and 17 seconds of ice time. I mean, if you're looking for someone who is defining a Hart Trophy season where it's not just the points that we usually see with a lot of these other, we have a points trophy, but it seems like, who's an MVP to their team. And for me, it's kind of like it's who is really putting the most effort to help their team, stay afloat or stay win games or stuff like that. You usually get, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Nikita Kucherov. Like you get those type of names for the Hart Trophy, which is fine. I mean, those guys are big for their teams, but if you're looking at someone who's exemplifying, hey, this team is struggling, but he's still producing in a way. For me, it's David Pastrnak because, like I said, 77 points in 63 games, well above a point per game. But Boston is struggling. He's a -3. One man can only do so much, and he's 30 points clear of Brad Marchand, who's not going to be playing in this game. So it would definitely be interesting to see how Pastrnak plays in this one. Obviously, for me, this one's more of a personal pick because I really like this guy. I'm hoping the Hurricanes do possibly trade for him if it's possible. We talked about on the Tuesday episode of hey, what's a possible trade that could look like to get this guy? And it's Morgan Geekie. 20 goals, 33 assists in 58 games. He has 114 shots, playing over 16 minutes a night. I mean, in terms of goals, he is third on the entire team, behind Marchand, 12 behind Pastrnak. And if you look in terms of the points, he's fourth on the team, only 5 back of Zacha. So, I mean, while he is 44 back of Pastrnak, he's still producing pretty decent. Like I say, he's third in the team in goals, and he's a +3. So, there's a guy who can put up power play goals with 3-4 game winners. He's someone who's, being able to do what's necessary to help the team. It's just, like I say, he also blocks shots and throws hits. So that's definitely someone you want to keep an eye on. In terms of that, I mean, if you're looking at other guys you want to keep an eye on, if you look at the defense, maybe Mason Lohrei, 28 points, 58 games. He is a -19, though. 19 minutes and 8 seconds. I mean, if you want to talk about someone who's kind of producing well for Boston, Nikita Zadorov, 15 points. He is a +14, so maybe that's the guy you want to look at on defense. But he does have 119 penalty minutes, though. So if the Hurricanes could definitely take advantage of someone who's going to be in the box slot, it might be Zadorov. So it'll be very interesting to see how that works out. For your Carolina Hurricanes, obviously, Mikko Rantanen, 70 points in 61 games. He's a +10 right now, still averaging over almost 22 minutes a game. He's been playing very well for the Hurricanes as of late. I mean, you're looking at a guy who, as we're getting a little bit closer to the trade deadline, obviously, unfortunately, you're getting a lot of noise around him, but he's still a guy who's gotten 3 points in the last 5 games. You got that goal and assist against Buffalo. Got an assist against Edmonton, but he's still finding ways to put up a lot of shots. He's shooting he's having 2 or more shots per game. He's playing a lot of minutes. It's just you're waiting for him to kick into the next gear because he's got 6 points in 12 games. So he is playing pretty decently, and he's averaging 19 minutes and 44 seconds for the Hurricanes. So he is someone who's doing a lot. Like I said, 37 shots in 12 games. He is not afraid to put the puck on the net. So definitely interesting how Mikko Rantanen does against the Boston Bruins. Other guys you want to keep an eye on, obviously, going to be Jacob Slavin. 6 goals, 23 points, 107 blocks, 21 minutes and 44 seconds. This is where I want to see how Jacob Slavin does against David Pastrnak. I mean, obviously, we all know he's one of the best. He is the best defensive defenseman in the AHL. You go against a guy like Pastrnak, who's really on a roll right now. I'm really curious to see how that matchup will fare out. And then another one, Seth Jarvis, 46 points in 55 games, 19 minutes and 28 seconds of ice time, 142 shots. He's been on an absolute roll as well. Obviously, going to get 55. If he's going to get 50 points, I wonder if he's going to get 60. I still think he might have a shot of getting 60. It's just we're going to really have to see a huge roll out of him. But Boston is definitely a team where he gets up to – I mean, he plays hard against everyone, but this is a type of game where you can see Seth Jarvis taking it to the next level, especially on – depends on what line he's with. If he's with the Jordans or if he's with – Ranton and Aho. Either way, this is going to be a game where you really want to keep your eye on Seth Jarvis because he always shows up for games like this against the Boston Bruins for sure. Now, keys of the game, and I kind of mentioned it in segment 1, but hey, special teams, it's cliche, but it's going to be special teams. The Carolina Hurricanes, yes, the PKU went 3 for 3 against Detroit, who had the second best power play. Great. Do it again against Boston because their power play is not that good. If you're the Hurricanes power play unit, take the opportunities that you can get on the Boston Bruins. Boston is not a good penalty kill team. And you have a guy in Zadorov who well over 100 penalty minutes. You can easily take advantage of a Boston Bruins team who's very upset right now, lost a lot of guys recently, and they're playing not so great hockey. They're a game above 500. If you can find a way, if they're going to take a lot of penalties, you have to take advantage of that. Because if you win the special teams battle, you can almost see another 8-2 game, or it could be 5-3 or 5-1 or however you want to do that. But you're giving yourself a good opportunity. If you win the special teams battle, you're going to have no problems in this game. And I also kind of said this in segment 1, bring us another 60-minute game. I said bring us 60 minutes against Detroit. The Hurricanes did it. If you do that again against Boston, there's your third straight win. You're going to the trade deadline with a lot of momentum, and you're kind of putting yourself and Eric Tulsky in a good spot of, okay, we're on the right path. We're on a good roll. Let's see who we can add. And I think this is the type of game where you're showing your GM, you're showing the fans, you're showing the organization as a whole that this team is going to be legit. And if you add a couple extra pieces, you might have a good shot for a deep playoff run. So this is where you want to do a full 60, win special teams, and set yourself up for a third straight win going into the trade deadline. That's going to be on Friday. Now, what's the other, kind of key to this game? Because we all know the cliche, like I said, special teams, play a full 60-minute game. And for me, it's just, it kind of ties into all of it. Just, you stay out of the box, you start early, get that crowd going, because, every time Boston comes into Carolina, they're going to be rattled. It's going to be one of those games where they know it's going to be a hostile environment because these two teams don't like each other, and the fans definitely, I think, give it to Boston a lot more than some other teams, like the Rangers or the Islanders or the Devils. Boston is definitely one of those teams where the Hurricanes fans will really come out for. So if you get the fans going in this game early, you're definitely going to be all over Boston and making it harder for them to kind of key into their game because they're already struggling. Now, if you go out there and, put the effort in and do what you need to do and get the crowd going, then I think you're putting yourself into a good spot where you're kind of, just beating them down on the ice. You're beating them down mentally with the crowd, and you're using the Lenovo Center as your advantage per usual. So those are kind of the keys of the game. Those are the players to watch on both sides because this will be very interesting to see how this kind of plays out all together when the Hurricanes take on the Boston Bruins for the second of 3 times this season. But in the comments below, if you're on YouTube, let me know who are the players you're going to be watching for in the game against Boston on Thursday night. Now, going into segment 3, like I said at the start of the show, we're going to still be doing our trade shortlist series that's going on because the deadline, like I said, is on Friday. We talked about Morgan Geeky. We talked about Ryan Donato. It's kind of interesting to see, look around the league of who could be some possibilities and see if anything is possible for a trade. So there is another one in Ryan McLeod of the Buffalo Sabres. So stick around as I'll go over why he should be on the Hurricane shortlist here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, we're doing the trade deadline series. Who's on the short list for the Hurricanes if they're looking for one? And I think there's another guy that I believe could be a good pickup for the Hurricanes if the Buffalo Sabres are willing to make this move. Not entirely sure. I know with like maybe a Morgan Geekie or Ryan Donato, that's probably more possible. But you can never say never in terms of how. I mean, we saw Mikko Rantanen get traded. Anything is definitely possible. And I think Ryan McLeod could be a good addition for the Hurricanes if they want to look at that kind of direction. He is a left shot center, 25 years old. Right now, Buffalo has him as the third line center on the depth chart. So just like Geeky, like Donato, possibly a top 9 center as you can go for, making $2.1 million. So basically, he's making the same range as Geeky and Donato, making $100,000 more. But hey, he's in the last year of his deal. He's going to be 25 in this summer, and he's an RFA just like Geeky. So you're still putting yourself into a good spot where you're still getting a guy in his mid to upper 20s. He is a left shot, center this time compared to Geeky being on the right, but the cap hit is still around the same. So there's still a possibility of where the Hurricanes have $1,000 or a little under $1,000 away from $500,000 in their trade deadline cap. So their wiggle room is a little bit smaller to play with, but if you're looking to possibly trade a contract that is, let's say, I hate to bring him up again, but like a Tyson Jost or maybe a Riley Stillman or however you want to play it, where you have a $775,000 contract, but if you add that on top of, the $499,000 and some change the Hurricanes have in terms of their trade deadline cap, you can maybe work out with Buffalo like, hey, do you want to retain even like 20? You don't even have to do the full 50%. Which would be like 1.6 or somewhere around there, or 1.55. But let's say even take 25% off to where you make that number where it's manageable with a $775,000 contract, or maybe you have to give up a prospect and a roster player, or a prospect and a pick, or however you want to do it. I still think there is an avenue to go about this to where maybe you do move a prospect that's a little bit higher on the list, but it's a contract that might work, and you just send, one of the guys from the main roster down, like Stillman or Joe, you can send them down to the AHL and still fit in McLeod's contract in some way, because the cap compliance guys in Carolina would figure it all out. But McLeod's contract, 2.1, it's still relatively close enough to where you could make it work. And I think, for a guy who's an RFA, he's 25, he's a top 9 center, and you know how good he is because he scored a couple goals against Carolina when they were in Buffalo. So this season, in 57 games for the Sabres, he's got 31 points, 14 goals, and 17 assists. He does have a .54 points per game pace right now, and I think that he's someone that could be a potentially good fit for the team if they want to look for a center who's, like I said, putting a decent amount of points. He's only gotten 12 penalty minutes, so he's reliable to not go on the box, averaging over 12 and a half minutes of even strength ice time for the Sabres. Now, this season for them, he does have career highs in goals with 14. Last year he had 12, so he's already beaten his goal total in significant amount of games fewer. He is 1 assist away from tying his career high that he had last year with 18, so he's definitely going to have another career high in assists. And he's already got his career high in points already with 31. Last year he had 30. So like I said, he's done this with the fact that he's only like a couple assists away from having career highs across the board in goals, assists, and points totals. Then arguably, this is his best season, and it's his first year in Buffalo. Because last year, in the last few years, he's been with the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, he was a draft pick, 40th overall in the 2018 draft, and he signed his 2-year deal with them. So the last 4 years in Edmonton before he came to Buffalo, he had 30 points, 23, 21, and 1. So in his first season with Buffalo, he's already putting up a lot of points. So this is where, could you make this work? Yes, he's an RFA, but is there a possibility that if you get him, does it fit your system? I think it fits the system because you could probably put him on the power play team if you want to. If not, he's still a good top 9 guy to have in terms of, hey, he could be a decent center that could work out for us. And, someone that can maybe find a way to, work their way into the lineup in a way that helps the Hurricanes. So I think that this is a guy that maybe he's not near a Ryan Donato point total, or maybe he's a little bit less than a Morgan Geekie in a sense. But I think Ryan McLeod, if you're looking for someone that's a little, maybe is on a team who's maybe not right there yet, I still think that he's someone that the Hurricanes could look at if there's a short list. His faceoff this year is actually better than Donato's and Geeky's, is at 51.7%. So that's still relatively doable for the fact that he's someone who could actually go there and do that. It all just depends on what the Hurricanes want to do with it. Because right now his shooting percentage is 23.3%, which is pretty good overall. So, and he's averaging 15 minutes and 55 seconds of overall ice time, which is also a career high for him as well. So this is a year where the Sabres put a little bit more effort into McLeod. They're giving him more opportunities, and he's paid off by doing that. Like I said, already got a career high in goals, already got a career high in points. He's almost there for assists. His ice time is up. His shooting percentage is really good, and over 50% of the faceoff dots. So there's another addition to the roster where it's like, yeah, you got a guy who could fit in with a Stahl, a Kotkaniemi, and Aho are always consistent winning faceoffs because that's how good the Hurricanes are. They're usually top 10 in the faceoff percentage. I think right now they're 5th this season. So you're adding another guy who can win you a lot of faceoffs. He's, like I said, putting up the points, putting up the goals. The money is relatively the same compared to the, Donato and Geeky and stuff like that. It's just, what type of moves can you do as the Hurricanes to go and get a guy like that? And could you get some retention? Maybe the Buffalo Sabres could retain 25%. Maybe they will go 50%. Who really knows if they're willing to move him? Could you add a third team in to maybe knock a little bit of that money down? It's a possibility. I mean, we've seen a lot of trades recently. I mean, you got Yanni Gordon, Oliver Bjorkstrand go to Tampa, and they had to go through a third team, which was the Detroit Red Wings. So, I mean, anything is possible if you want to make a trade work where you add a third team and have to throw a pick somewhere. I mean, they had to do that with the Chicago Blackhawks to get Mikko Rantanen at a contract deal that is relatively makes sense for them at half. So, will the Sabres be willing to move McLeod? I'm not really sure. I don't think they would, especially for the fact that he's 25 as an RFA. Maybe they want to take another shot with him next season on this roster that's still relatively young with Krebs and Thompson and all of them. So is it less likely than maybe a Morgan Geeky who's also an RFA? Most probably. Is it less probable to get moved than like a Ryan Donato? I would definitely think so. I think Donato, out of the three that we've talked about in the show, I think he's more movable. But, I mean, if you're looking at a short list of possible guys to add, I don't think McLeod is a bad option. If you're looking for the Hurricanes or looking for someone that does win faceoffs, is someone you could maybe put in the PK if you really need to. Someone you could probably put on the power play, plays top 9 minutes, because I'm not going to say top 9 lines because the lines aren't numbered, but top 9 minutes in a sense. Yeah, he's not that right-handed shot that the Hurricanes, are. I know they want one. They had one in Drury. Roslovic is okay, but I mean, if you're talking, it's just whatever reason, if they think McLeod could maybe, I don't know if the Hurricanes are even looking at McLeod. I'm just giving you what I think a short list could be for the Hurricanes, because who really knows at this point if the Hurricanes are going to make a move, because they already went big game hunting for Rantanen and Hall. Are they in a move for someone else? I'm not really sure, but if you're looking at who could be a short list candidate to look at, like I said, outside of Boston and Chicago for their two guys, I wouldn't be upset if McLeod was an option, because at least it's someone that could provide some good depth, guy you have contract control of, because that's definitely something you really want to have, is a guy who's not going to be walking at free agency. You're going to have his rights for at least a little bit and find a way to make an extension work. So let me know what you think in the comments as well. Do you think Ryan McLeod would be a good option for the Carolina Hurricanes as a possible short, a short list of a trade? So let me know. But so we got the Boston Bruins on Thursday night. Trade deadline is very much closer away, so a lot more speculations to come. And make sure, if you're on social media, to follow the right people, because this is the time of year where it's going to get crazy with a lot of fake accounts that are going to run a lot of fake trade announcements. So make sure to keep an eye on that. But something that's not fake is the fact that this will be the end of the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making it your first listen. For your second listen, well, why don't you check out Locked On NHL Podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or listen to podcasts. If you want to keep it with me, I'm at One True Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin, where I have links in all my bios where you can check out my articles at thehockeywriters.com for anything Carolina Hurricanes related. Also for AHL coverage, well, it's at thecaldertimes.com. If you do want to check out my baseball content, it's going to be at coveringthecorner.com. Also, if you want to check my other podcast, which is the Surgecast, well, you can find that on all podcast platforms and on YouTube because it is a weekly show. Now, for Locked On Hurricanes, Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, make sure to follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, Locked On Hurricanes, subscribe, hit the bell notification so it's a show, hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well, share with all their Canucks to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Thursday and have fun on Thursday night watching your Hurricanes against the Boston Bruins. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.